I found the envelope half buried under a crusty paint rag, right next to the chipped mug of jasmine tea I never drank. The mug was Alex's. She liked to pretend I'd warm up to it eventually, but I never did. The envelope wasn't sealed. Just my name, Jordan, written across the front in her tight, architectural handwriting. I opened it without much thought. Inside were the partnership dissolution papers. For the studio. For the LLC. For everything. "I'm leaving," Alex said behind me. I hadn't heard her come in. "The company. And you." I didn't turn around right away. Just stared at the last line of the contract. Mutual consent recommended for expedited termination. Of course she drafted herself. She was always good at the paperwork side of our life. "Okay," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You have a pen?" Alex blinked like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "What? A pen? I'll sign now." I finally looked at her. She was standing with her arms crossed, wearing that olive jumpsuit she always called her power skin. Hair tucked back, jaw set. She had rehearsed this moment, I could tell. Had probably practiced different ways I might explode. Accusations, pleading, cold fury. But I didn't give her any of that. I just waited. She stepped forward, almost reluctantly, and handed me a black ink pen from her apron. I signed the last page. No flourish. Just my name. I slid the paper back across the work table toward her and wiped my fingers on my jeans. "You're not going to ask why?" she said after a long pause. Her voice had lost some of its edge. She sounded deflated. I looked at the sunlight streaming in through the cracked skylight, landing in a perfect rectangle over our shared drafting table. That table had seen everything: late-night arguments, bottle of wine brainstorms, silent breakfasts after sex. "No," I said. She waited. For what? I wasn't sure. Regret? A final fight? "You thought I'd lose it," I said, finally meeting her eyes. "Didn't you?" "I didn't come here for a scene." "But you wanted one," I said, more to myself than to her. Alex didn't answer. She just folded the documents neatly and slid them into her canvas bag, right next to her sketchbook. "I'll be back tomorrow for the rest of my stuff." I nodded. "The cabinet's yours. And the kiln. I'll pack up my tools tonight." She looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I already was. When the door shut behind her, I stood alone in the studio, in the silence that followed. I should have felt something. Anger. Sadness. Relief. But all I felt was stillness. She'd expected me to unravel. That was her mistake. Alex posted a photo the next morning, her hands cradling a cappuccino, layered with the usual foam art. The caption read, "Some mornings, you realize it's not that they didn't love you. They just didn't fight for you." I saw it while wrapping my chisels in canvas, one by one. She held court later that week at Maven's table, the overpriced cafe where the ceramic cups cost more than the coffee. It was her kind of place. Minimalist walls, poems etched into napkins, clove-scented air. She chose the center table, made sure her people could see her from every angle. Simone got there first, of course. She always had something to say, even when there was nothing to say. Then came Devin, the brooding poet who used to leave ink-stained notebooks on our studio couch. Mira was last, quiet as ever, folding her coat neatly instead of just tossing it over the back of her chair like the others. Alex started in before the pastries even hit the table. "I didn't expect him to beg," she said, stirring her drink too forcefully. But he didn't even blink. He just signed, like I was filing a change of address form. Simone gasped like it was a crime against humanity. "He didn't ask why?" "No, not one word." Devin mumbled something about emotional cowardice, which was probably meant to sound profound. Mira stayed silent, her eyes flicking between Alex's face and her hands, always the hands with Mira. "You could read a person's whole truth in the tension of their fingers," she once told me. "You know what gets me?" Alex said, pressing her palms flat to the table. "After everything we built, the studio, the shows, the press, he just vanished. No speech, no defense, just erased himself." Mira frowned. Maybe that was his answer. Alex didn't like that. She shrugged it off with a laugh, but I saw the twitch in her jaw later in the photo Devin posted. She was losing grip on the story. Meanwhile, I packed quietly. No announcements. No dramatic farewell posts. I took my art down piece by piece. Cleared out the shared shelf. Removed my name from the gallery roster. Disconnected the payment link. changed the website password. She'd find out soon enough. It was strange how easy it was. Disappearing. Like walking out of a party where the music had gotten too loud. Nobody chases after you. They just keep dancing. By Sunday, Alex had changed our Instagram bio from studio co-founders to just her name. I didn't correct it. I didn't need to. I didn't leave a note on the studio door. No goodbye email. No public statement. I just stopped being there. The utilities account switched to her name. The shared Dropbox folder, gone. I opened a new one under a new alias, J.R. Hartwell. Just enough distance from my real name to feel like a rebirth without being a lie. A week later, I signed a lease across the river, a raw loft in a converted textile mill. Concrete floors, exposed beams, tall windows that let in just enough cold light to remind me I was alone. It was perfect. The silence was delicious. I started building furniture again. Real things. Not installations or statement pieces, but walnut tables that held weight. Chairs that didn't apologize for their presence. It felt good to work with my hands again, without Alex's voice trailing behind me, murmuring about curvature, about symmetry, about emotional arc. No one asked what my process was. I didn't have to name anything. Alex must have noticed, because a few weeks in, she started texting. First, it was about the mail. Hey, did my grant application letter go to your address by mistake? I didn't reply. I forwarded it when it arrived. No note attached. Then, just wondering if you're still planning to attend the City Space panel. They confirmed both of us months ago. I removed myself from the panel that afternoon. She could have the spotlight. I didn't want it. That's when the silence started working on her. It crept into her tone at openings, where people asked about me without asking directly. Is Jordan still working with you? Haven't seen his name on the mailing list. She filled the void with stories. He needed space. He's going through something. He's pursuing a solo vision. But the truth was more boring. I was just gone. Neatly. Entirely. At night, I'd sit by the window in my new space, sipping black coffee, watching the lights from the bridge flicker across the water. No one knew I lived here. Not even Sarah, our old gallery liaison who used to get drinks with us after shows. Especially not Sarah. Across the river, Alex's apartment still glowed into the late hours. She was probably working on something with her new interns. Ideas she used to toss around with me while eating takeout on the studio floor. Maybe she missed the way I used to sand every edge until it felt like Riverstone. Maybe not. But I knew she noticed the absence. It had a weight to it. A kind of haunting. I didn't leave a mess. I didn't leave a version of myself behind for her to fight with or explain away. Just an echo. And the thing about echoes? You can't argue with them. You can only listen. I hadn't planned to be seen. The architectural salon wasn't my kind of space. Too polished, too curated, full of men in double-breasted blazers who talked about flow and legacy like they were the same thing. But Sienna had insisted. It's a networking thing, she said, sipping her wine without a trace of nerves. Just smile and nod. I wasn't used to feeling like the quiet one in the room. But that night, with Sienna next to me in her simple gray dress and soft voice that made people lean in, I let her take the lead. She belonged in that world effortlessly, not because she faked it, but because she didn't care about impressing anyone. I laughed at something she said, something small and cutting and true, and the sound startled me. I'd forgotten how it felt to laugh without measuring the room. That was the moment Mira saw us. She was standing near the sculpture wall, half listening to a lecture on sustainable materials, and I caught her gaze by accident. There was a flicker of recognition, then surprise, then something else, curiosity, maybe. She didn't wave, just tilted her head slightly, processing. I saw her take out her phone. I knew what was coming. Alex called me a week later. I didn't answer, of course, but the voicemail came through. Mira said she saw you at the Lawson event. That wasn't you, right? You always said those things were pretentious. Just curious. Hope you're good. Just curious. She didn't mention Sienna. Didn't ask who the woman was, or why she was laughing with me like she'd known me for years. But I knew Alex, and I knew what she was really asking. A few days later, Sienna found a photo someone had posted on the salon's account. Me, blurry in the background, leaning into her shoulder. My hand on the small of her back. Are you okay with this being public? She asked, phone tilted toward me. I shrugged. Doesn't bother me. It didn't. Not really. It was the first picture of me in months where I didn't look like a ghost. Alex must have seen it too. I didn't hear from her again, but I could feel the shift, like a thread unraveling behind a wall. The narrative she'd built, me as the cold one, the emotionless architect of silence, didn't quite match the man smiling at a party she would have mocked. She used to joke that I looked out of place in settings like that. Said I'd rather be in a woodshop than a wine bar. And she was right until now. Sienna didn't ask me to change. She just asked what I wanted to build. And maybe that was the difference. I don't know what she told herself to justify it. Maybe she was just driving by, or maybe she wanted to feel close to something she used to own. Either way, Alex ended up parked outside my building. The loft complex wasn't flashy, but it had presence. Brick and steel. Soft amber lights that made the place glow like it belonged in a design magazine. My unit faced the street, third floor, corner window, and if you sat long enough, you could see movement behind the sheer linen curtains. She did sit. In her SUV, engine off, hands gripping the wheel like she was waiting for permission to exhale. She didn't expect to see me. She definitely didn't expect Sienna. The silhouettes gave us away. I was standing by the window with a glass in one hand, gesturing with the other. Sienna walked up behind me, set something on the table, then leaned into me, her head resting briefly against my shoulder. It wasn't romantic in the obvious way. There was no kiss, no embrace. Just ease. Familiarity. The kind of intimacy that doesn't need translation. Alex watched from the driver's seat, still as stone. No text, no call. Just her staring up at the window, trying to read the shape of my new life like it was a foreign language she used to speak fluently. I didn't see her that night. But later, Mira told me. She showed me a photo, Mira said during a chance run-in at the ceramics co-op, of your window, of you and her. Sienna, I supplied. Right? Mira nodded, then paused. She didn't say it, but I think it gutted her. I didn't ask what Alex had said, or if she'd cried, or tried to spin it. None of it mattered. All that mattered was that she saw it, not just that I'd moved on, but that I'd moved better. Alex used to think she was the story. The one people followed, sympathized with, admired. She thought I was the quiet supporting character who faded into the background after the final scene. But now? Now I was the one with the light on in the window, with laughter in the background, with someone beside me who didn't flinch at the quiet. I don't know how long she sat there, watching. I imagine it was long enough to see Sienna reach out and adjust the record player. Long enough to hear the faint sound of jazz drifting into the street. Long enough to realize I hadn't just moved on from her. I'd stepped into a version of myself she never bothered to understand. Eventually, she pulled away. I heard the SUV's tires crunch over the gravel and fade into the night. She never said a word about it. She didn't have to. The message came late, around midnight. The kind of hour when you only text someone you've been thinking about for too long. Hey, can we talk sometime? I think we need closure. I stared at the screen for a full minute, then locked the phone and placed it face down on the workbench. Closure. That word again. Alex always loved vocabulary that made her sound composed. Words that put a frame around messiness and hung it like art. Closure meant she still wanted the last word, the power to define how the story ended. I waited until the next morning. No urgency. No rush. Then I typed back. What's left to discuss? I didn't get a reply right away. Not for hours. When it finally came, it was a wall of text, all lowercase, like that would make it feel casual. I just feel like everything ended so suddenly. Like, we didn't say what needed to be said. I wasn't expecting silence from you. It's been confusing. Confusing. That made me laugh. I didn't answer. She tried again the next day. I thought maybe we could meet. Just coffee. Just talk. I didn't respond to that one either. Eventually, she stopped. A week passed. Then two. Nothing. I opened our old message thread one night, not out of longing, just curiosity. The last message I had sent her before the split was a reminder to pick up kiln supplies. That was over 2 months ago. She hadn't answered that one either. So maybe the silence wasn't one-sided after all. Maybe it never had been. It's just that now, with nothing left to lean on, no studio, no audience, no narrative, the quiet between us suddenly felt louder to her. She had spent years painting me as reserved, withholding, hard to read. But the truth was simpler. I spoke in actions, not performances. And I had already said everything I needed to say. She was the one still looking for an ending. But I had already walked out of the theater. It was raining. Not heavy, just that cold, steady drizzle that makes everything feel like it's holding its breath. The concierge buzzed me from downstairs. "Visitor for you." "Alex." He said it like it was any other name. I almost told him to send her away. Almost. But I didn't. "Let her up," I said, then hung up and turned to Sienna. She didn't look surprised. She was curled on the couch with a book in one hand and a mug in the other, hair loose around her shoulders, calm as ever. The rain tapped at the windows like it was trying to warn us. "You okay with this?" I asked. Sienna looked up. "It's your door. You decide who gets to walk through it." A moment later, it opened. Alex stood there in a soaked trench coat, hair plastered to her face, mascara faintly smudged under her eyes. For a second, I didn't say anything. Neither did she. "I just want to talk," she said finally, voice small. I stepped aside. "Then talk." She entered like a stranger, eyes darting to the walls, the furniture, Sienna, especially Sienna. Sienna nodded politely but didn't rise. She flipped a page in her book, her presence so quiet it made Alex louder just by comparison. "You've done well for yourself," Alex said, forcing a little laugh. "Industrial chic suits you." I didn't answer. I walked to the kitchen and came back with a towel. Held it out without a word. She took it. "Look, I know I probably shouldn't have come," she said, rubbing her arms, "but the way we left things." "There was no way," I said calmly. "You left." I signed. That was it. She looked around again. Her gaze landed on Sienna's slippers by the couch, the dried eucalyptus in the corner vase, the pair of mugs on the side table. "So," she said, clearing her throat, "this is your life now." I didn't flinch. "Yeah, it is." "And she's—" Alex hesitated. Sienna looked up again. I steady. "Sienna." There was a silence that didn't feel like a pause. It felt like a wall. Alex stepped back from it instinctively, like she'd reached for something she expected to be there and found nothing. "You're different," she said to me, like it was a warning. "I'm just not performing for you anymore." Her face flickered, that old, practiced mask breaking for half a second. She looked at Sienna one more time. "You don't even know who I used to be," she muttered. Sienna closed her book. "I know who he is now." Alex nodded slowly, like she'd just been told a truth she'd tried not to believe. "I thought you'd at least be angry," she said. "I was," I replied. Then I remembered what peace feels like. She opened her mouth again, to argue, or to beg, or to defend. I'll never know. But I didn't give her space for it. "I think we're done here," I said gently. Alex looked down at the towel still in her hands. She folded it once, carefully, and placed it on the counter. Then, without another word, she turned and walked out into the rain. And this time, I didn't watch her go. She texted me 2 days later. Just 5 words. "Was that Sienna McAllister?" I almost didn't respond. But something about the tone. Unsure, like she wasn't certain if she'd seen a ghost or just remembered one wrong, made me type back. "Yes." 5 minutes later, another message. "From CalArts?" The jury show in 2013. So she did remember. Sienna and Alex had overlapped for maybe a semester. I hadn't even known about it until recently. But once I did, it made a lot of things click. Sienna had mentioned it offhand, that they'd had a tense critique session once, that Alex had called her installation amateurish and technically confused in front of the entire board. Said it wasn't personal. Said she barely remembered. But Alex did. Because the next night, she showed up at my door. No umbrella this time. Just her standing there, damp and rumpled, clutching a folder under her arm like it was a shield. "I just have one question," she said. I stepped aside again, against my better judgment. Sienna wasn't home. She had a gallery walkthrough. It was just me, the hum of the loft, and the storm building in her silence. "I remember her," Alex said. "She cried after the jury. Left the room before the scores were even tallied." I said nothing. Alex stared at the floor. She was small, timid. Her work was fine, but forgettable. "Not to me," I said softly. That shut her up. She set the folder on my counter without explanation. "I found some of our old sketches. From the Westerville series." I didn't touch it. "Why bring those now?" She shrugged. I don't know. Nostalgia. Guilt. Take your pick. There was a long pause, broken only by the sound of rain ticking against the window panes. Then, almost like it pained her, she asked, Did you ever love me? I looked at her for a long moment. Not with anger. Not even pity. Just truth. I did, I said. Until you stopped loving us. The words hung there, heavy and final. Not me. Us. The life we built. The thing we were trying to protect. The art. The work. The we that she walked away from long before I signed the papers. She nodded, barely. Her hands tightened around the edge of the counter. I didn't think you'd move on like this. I didn't think you'd leave so easily, I replied. Alex took a shaky breath and reached for the folder. Then thought better of it. She left it behind. At the door, she paused. She doesn't remember me, she said, more to herself than to me. She might, I replied. But she doesn't carry it like you do. That was the difference, I realized. Alex had spent years trying to shape perception, control it, bend it, rewrite it. Sienna didn't need to. Alex nodded again. Then she left. No breakdown. No apologies. Just the quiet defeat of someone who realized the door wasn't just closed. It was locked from the inside. It showed up on my feed like everything else does these days, casually, innocently, as if it wasn't going to change anything. A photo posted by Sienna. It wasn't staged. Just a blurry, sun-drenched image of the two of us at the market. Me holding a bag of oranges, Sienna laughing with her sunglasses pushed into her hair. I hadn't even realized she took it. The caption was simple. Sometimes happiness begins exactly where desperation ends. I scrolled past it without thinking, then back again. And then I saw the like. Alex. It hit me harder than her messages, harder than her visit. She had seen the life she'd once shared with me, now fully lived without her, and she hadn't looked away. That was when I knew it had landed. Sienna didn't remember her from CalArts. At least, that's what she said when I brought it up. I don't think I ever learned her last name, she shrugged. Or maybe I just forgot. But I don't think she forgot. I think she forgave it before it could matter. And that was something Alex could never understand. Forgiveness without performance. Love without leverage. Comfort that didn't come with critique. I wondered what Alex saw when she looked at that photo. My hand on Sienna's waist? The ease in my posture? The absence of bitterness in my smile? Or maybe it was something else, something smaller, crueler. Maybe she remembered the girl she once mocked in front of a full jury panel. The one whose piece she dismissed as underdeveloped. The one who cried in a stairwell while Alex sipped her coffee and moved on. And now, that girl had become the woman standing beside the man Alex once believed she could discard without consequence. I didn't hear from her again. No messages. No late-night calls. No apologies hidden inside clever metaphors. Just silence. Not the punishing kind, but the kind that meant she had nothing left to say. I lay in bed that night, scrolling once more through the photo. I didn't repost it. Didn't add a caption. Didn't tag anyone. I just smiled. Not out of smugness. Not even triumph. Just relief. Alex had wanted a clean ending. A version of the story where she left, and I stayed where she left me. Waiting, wondering, unfinished. But instead, I became something she couldn't control. And the truth was simple. She hadn't just left me. She'd made room for someone better. Alex had expected Jordan's silence to mean surrender. But it became his quietest, most complete form of freedom. And in the space where she once stood, he found not revenge, but renewal.